Welcome back to Weekend Smile. So during Lent, a common practice is to give up our quote-unquote bad habits. But sometimes these bad habits are stuff that other people embrace. Today we're joined by life coach Elizabeth Terry to explore the diverse perceptions of habits. Hi Mrs. Terry, how are you doing?
I'm really good. Glad to be here.
We're happy to have you as well. So as I mentioned, during Lent, a lot of times persons tend to give up these habits that they think that either they need to break, they need to get rid of, they need to get take a break from, or to start some new ones. So how does personal perspective and individual circumstances play a role in determining whether a habit is beneficial or detrimental?
Good question. So first of all, I think I want to step back just a little bit to say, how do we come by habits? Because a lot of times we don't understand how they're formed.
Right.
And so really what happens is that we have a learned pattern of the behavior as a response to a certain situation, right? And back of that behavior is a learned pattern of thinking, because thought always precedes behavior, right? Thought and feeling. And to your question, how do you determine whether it's a good thing or a bad thing for you? Well, ultimately, it's the result that you get. And sometimes the result that you get, for example, let's say somebody has got hooked on comfort eating, you know?
The sweet stuff.
Right, the sweet stuff. And the idea is that we are motivated to take up a behavior usually because we want to feel better, right?
Okay.
We want to feel good in some way. And sometimes that good feeling is only very short-lived. So you get the taste of the chocolate, or you eat the cake, and you feel, yay, I feel full, I feel great, oh, this sugar feels so good, it's a sugar high. But ultimately there is a negative impact, especially if you keep doing it, and you start putting on weight.
Or even diseases can lead
lifestyle
from that.
Diseases, diabetes, one of the highest diseases here. So you have to kind of check yourself and say, is this the kind of life that I want? Do I feel good about it?
So I will have to ask you as well then, can you share some insights as to how persons can determine whether a habit is then good or bad?
Well, if it's affecting you negatively in terms of your health, because long term, just to continue that example, if you're eating sweets to excess, and you go to your doctor and your sugar level is high, and you say, hey, Tally, you got to stop that, right?
Yes.
So that would be an indicator. Or it could be how you impact your friends and family, the people around you.
Okay.
So it just depends, because there are a whole slew of habits that we develop, and they're just learned behavior patterns.
Over a period of time.
Yes.
What are some common misconceptions then, people have when assessing the quality of these habits? So, for example, you mentioned that sometimes it is based on how we affect others. Sometimes it's based on how it affects us personally. But what are some common misconceptions that people have when they determine that, hey, this habit is good, this habit is bad, it's not working, is it working, it's something that I need to keep up versus something that I need to let go of?
Yeah, well, it comes down to the results again, you know. Are you getting the results you want in your life? How is that working for you, basically, right? Another misconception is, boy, it's a mistake.
It's a mistake.
It's a mistake.
Something grow.
Exactly. And that we can't. And the wonderful news is that, our brains are actually plastic. And so that learned behavior pattern that you have has formed a neural circuit. So you may have heard the term, neurons that fire together wire together. And so that has become basically a learned pattern.
Okay.
But you have trillions of connections that are possible. And so because your brain has this neuroplasticity, it means that you can actually form new neural pathways and develop good habits
over
instead.
time.
Yes.
Okay. And then how do societal norms and cultural influences impact our perception of habits as positive or negative?
Well, it's really about expectations. What people feel is the right thing the norms, as you mentioned, how we are socialized. But I like to, when I'm dealing with my clients, it's more about what that individual truly wants.
Okay.
What is it that they are trying to achieve? So, for example, if someone wants to change a habit and it's not happening, one of the things that I would ask them is, what's the intention behind the habit?
Okay.
Yeah? So what's the intention? Meaning, what's the reason that you're actually doing it? Because sometimes if you really don't know, it's so automatic that you just do it. But there is something that it's filling. There's a void. There is something. And in the case of comfort eating, it could be that you have anxiety, or maybe you have a disappointment. There's something that triggers it.
I was actually going to touch on that trigger factor.
Yeah.
Something would have to happen that would cause you to then do something.
Exactly.
But what about those habits that you don't even think about it? You just you just get up and it just happens.
You just do it.
Yes.
Like driving your car.
Just like driving your car. It's almost like you're on autopilot now.
Yeah, exactly. And so the first thing you have to do is to actually identify the habit.
Okay.
You can't change what you don't know.
Okay.
So you have to be able to identify it. And I would say the next thing you have to do is, assess your readiness to change. Because I've seen people who are, getting ready to change. They're not really ready. So you have to figure out, am I willing to stop this behavior?
Okay.
And what am I going to replace it with?
Yeah.
Because that's important.
As well.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a list of habits, and we're actually going to discuss whether we see it as a good habit or a bad habit.
Okay.
And these range from simple everyday habits to more complex habits. So the first one is saying yes to everything. Are you a reliable person, or are you a people pleaser?
Well, in my language, we would call that a saboteur. You have a saboteur, a pleaser saboteur. Right?
Okay.
And that can, in the moment, seem like a good thing because you are helping out the other individual. But ultimately, pleasers want something behind that. Remember talking about, what's the trigger, what's really motivating you? So pleasers want to feel loved, they want to feel valued, and they get that externally when they please people. So they don't want to say no.
Okay.
Yeah, they never want to say no. It's rock the boat, and then maybe my self-confidence, my self-esteem doesn't, feel good.
Okay, so you might not necessarily be a reliable person. You might really and truly just be a people pleaser.
Yes.
If it is that you just always say yes.
Say yes.
The next one, multitasking. Are you not dedicating enough time to each task, or is this a valuable skill?
Well, research has it that we really can't multitask efficiently and effectively. That's what the research says. And it's far better to spend some focused attention doing one particular thing, even if it's for a short space of time, and then switch, do something else. But trying to do 2 and 3 things at once, one of them usually gets messed up.
Yeah, you fall short somewhere.
Yes, you do. So it's really advisable not to do it. I know sometimes the exigencies of work, you're sort of juggling many different things. But I would say try to stop for a moment, focus on one thing, and then switch.
Okay.
So activate your switching mechanism rather than doing everything at once.
And trying to juggle.
Exactly.
All right. Third, always on social media. Are you satisfying your need to know and staying up to date, or are you developing an addiction?
It could very well be an addiction, and there's a lot of talk now, especially about kids and how much screen time they're having and the impact that has on your social skills and connecting with other people. Yes, you're connecting on the internet, but sometimes you see people going to dinner
and you're just like this, always on the phone.
Everybody's on their phone.
Yeah, nobody's talking face to face anymore.
Exactly. So I think my mother used to say moderation.
Okay.
So I think it's discipline. It's managing that so that if you're doing it for work, then you have to do a certain amount of scrolling in order to be able to be in the know,
Yeah.
then do that. But the question is knowing when to stop.
Okay, knowing when to stop. That's
Yeah.
important. All right, so we have to stop here, unfortunately.
Yes.
Mrs. Terry, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yes.
It was a pleasure speaking with you.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. Life coach Elizabeth Terry just joined